pledge allegiance of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Christie, can you call the roll, please?
Cassawanti,
Here.
Polakowski,
Here.
Marsh, here, Mala,
Present.
Jim Thompson.
Okay, Chief, any amendments to the agenda?
We do. Item 2, and I think Christie has passed out a revised agenda item 2. I apologize. So
I didn't, hold on a moment.
Brian's staff called that. We provided some clarification in it. There was some confusion with that agenda item, so I apologize. When we get to it, I'll give you the details of that, but you now have the revised agenda item with the clarification.
Okay.
Thank you, Brian. Okay. Words and presentations, any?
No words of presentation.
That will take us to public comment. We've got Lieutenant Decker here and Brian, any comment? About out in?
I don't have any from online.
All right. That will take us to our consent agenda. The only thing I see in there is the minutes from last week. Would like to make a comment or a motion on that?
To adopt the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second that. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. 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 Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, that will take us to our change that the chief just addressed on our general fund. Chief, do you want to open it up?
Sure. So obviously there's greater detail in this agenda item, but basically this is carrying monies forward from 2024 to 2025 based on items that have been appropriated, but the projects had not been completed. So you see a complete breakdown in the executive summary regarding the general fund. These are rural contributions, the 266,177. The fleet replacement, those are the apparatus that we have on order, which is 1 engine, 1 truck, or 1 tower.
I probably better stop you there, Chief. We need to do this in a public meeting.
Oh,
Yeah, and Emily is on.
We have to open it first.
Okay. So this will be agenda item 2, conduct a public hearing, consider a motion. So we need a motion to open the public hearing. So moved.
second.
Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Emily, for the record?
Yes. Yeah, I'll make my certification for the record that notice of today's public hearing was duly published and posted as required by law. The authority received no public comments prior to today's public hearing.
Thank you, Emily. Okay.
To start.
Yeah, Chief, I'll turn it back over to you. Sorry to interrupt you. I should have done that on the front end.
No worries. So again, this is basically carrying forward money from the 2024 to 2025 projects that had not been completed. So the general fund 266,177, those are funds from the rural based on the staffing through 2026. The fleet replacement fund of 4.7 million is the 1 engine, 1 truck, and 1 rescue that are on order and associated equipment. There's some additional equipment in there. The capital projects fund is the rural funding. This is the remainder of the 2.2. So obviously that project is ongoing. The capital impact fees of 1.6. This is the remodeling of the basement for logistics. This is also vehicles for those positions. And then the rest of it is the training center, or excuse me, the burn prop. So there was some confusion with that as well. I'll take ownership of that. That it was included, the Health and Wellness Center in November was stated to be part of that project. That is not. No impact fees are being applied to that. So it's 100% the burn prop and the infrastructure supporting that in regards to the training center. Open for any
Okay.
questions that you have.
Paul, question, please. Chief, the fleet replacement fund of 4.7 million. My understanding, I'm probably wrong on this, but when we ordered those vehicles, we agreed to do that. I thought we had to pay all those monies up front. Was I incorrect?
We don't, it was up front.
Really?
You gotta encumber the money though.
Okay.
So we have to have the money. We can't spend it for anything
Right,
else.
right.
And then.
Okay, that's good news, because for some reason, I was thinking we had to pay up front. That's always been something that bothered me. Thanks for.
Generally, we pay, when the cabin chassis is done, we pay that at that point, and then that brings down they give you a discount if you prepay the cabin chassis. And we haven't received those invoices yet.
Thanks for the clarification. I appreciate it.
Mr. Chair, if I could ask a question.
Sure.
Capital Projects Fund, could you go over that again or go in more detail? I'm not sure I understand what that was.
Sure, so 2 years ago, the rural, basically put forth 2.2 million of their reserve to, start phase one of the training center. So phase one is multiple projects. They put forth that money. That was at the same time that we, worked with the city to basically sign a 99-year, lease, for the training center. So the training center ultimately is LFRA is under a lease. 99 years with option to renew. I'm not sure I'm gonna be around to renew it, but the point is to really kind of free that up. That is inclusive of the Probasco property.
Okay. Great, thank you.
Other questions? Brian, yes.
So we had asked for clarification on the appropriations Monday. And I don't have time to really run down with it, but this is really, really different from what was in the packet.
Great.
Because we had the personnel, I mean, it's not even the same thing. So I'm confused as to why, we were confused initially as to why all this budgeting was being done after the fact, and then also, well, I guess now it's totally different. So if we needed all those appropriations earlier, now we don't. I'm just really baffled, and I don't have time to review this. I mean, I know it'll get passed today. And then I guess we'll try to pick up the pieces after, but totally baffled as to, what was in the packet. It's completely different from what was submitted.
I think Andrea would like to respond to that, Brian.
So, you are correct, there's quite a bit of difference. The main difference and almost the only difference is the personnel. I misunderstood and I take ownership of that. I misunderstood when the funding for those 13 positions was received from the rural district. Funding was received for 2024. Only for the 2024, not for the entire 3 years that the rural district has agreed to fund those positions. So because of the way things were recorded in enterprise with the project, it looked as though that money needed to be carried forward to fund those positions. That was incorrect. The rural district will be providing funding for those positions for 2025 throughout the year.
But are the expenses budgeted for the
Yes.
personnel?
Yes.
Okay, so the expenses are just the revenue was missing?
Yes. Well, and actually nothing was missing. It was in there. It was carrying forward.
It's just miscategorized, am I
Right.
correct?
It was the original draft was assuming that revenue had been received and needed to be pulled forward, and it does not.
I mean, are we able to, Emily's there, I know, I mean, are we able to approve something that hasn't been published?
Hasn't been what?
Published?
I mean, the board's always at liberty to amend a document that's presented to it in a meeting and to approve it as amended. Whether the board wants to do that is a different question. And if you don't, you could continue today's public hearing to a subsequent meeting and we could call the board back. I'm not an accountant, and so I don't know the specific numbers or what they were budgeted for. What I will say And what is somewhat different with special districts than possibly the municipality, certainly the state, is all district appropriations lapse at the end of a calendar year. It is not possible for an appropriation made in 2024 to automatically carry into 2025. Any funds remaining in 2024 on December 31st automatically become carryover fund balance. So this type of resolution, if you go back in the authority's records, has been passed every single year in January for as long as I've been counsel, because what happens is the board will approve an appropriation in this case 24 for say $1 million for purpose X. Well, throughout 2024 we only spend 800,000 and purpose X isn't done. But it doesn't matter, that appropriation lapses on December 31st. So we come back in January and say we are now reappropriating out of the fund balance the $200,000 that was unspent in order to complete the purpose. I can't speak to the change in numbers. Again, that's outside my scope, but that is historically how this body has done its January budget. So it's really up to the board whether you want to approve the resolution as amended, or whether you want to continue the public hearing and pick it up at a subsequent date when there's been, if you feel that you need more time to review.
Chief, question clarification on this. It sounds like we're talking about some just technical nature. Everything on here, we've had a conversation with in the past. It's been approved, so we're not doing anything that we haven't already talked about and approved previously. Is that accurate?
That is accurate. What we did, and again, I give Brian's staff credit for this, called the question. I looked at it, and that's when Andrea and I have met. So what we have done, and in fairness to Andrea, I appreciate her taking responsibility, but part of this, we have to understand there's been a lot of transition in that position. I'm not making excuses. I own this. But the reality is it was called the question. We created the clarification. All funds are accounted for. There hasn't been any changes to that. It's just projects that weren't completed, and we're carrying them forward.
I don't recall a year, for what it's worth, with either the rural or the authority where we haven't done something like this in January, February every year. It's just the nature of the beast and how it works.
Yeah, and I mean, where it's problematic is there was that it wasn't categorized correctly, and we own that. We own that. So
I would suggest, unless anybody feels different, that we just go forward with it. There's nothing new here. It's all been approved previously by this board.
It's just a minor difference on the financial economic impacts. It's actually a little bit less now.
We're still open for comments. Brian, Lieutenant Decker, anybody out there in television land?
I don't have anybody else on the line.
Okay, without any further comments from the public, I need a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Further conversation? Hearing none, motion carries. We're back in our regular board meeting. So we need a motion to adopt the resolution at this point. So moved.
I'll do a motion to adopt resolution R-172 as amended.
You'll be seconding.
Okay, you have to put as amended.
Oh,
All I
okay,
want-
you are correct.
I
You
just
are
wanted to
correct.
make sure you had as amended.
You want to second it?
I'll second.
Okay. Please have the record reflect
Yes,
that. Further conversation? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you very much. I know everybody will be disappointed, but we're all ready to the chief's briefing papers and correspondence.
all right, thanks, Mr. Chairman. So I will go through this. This will be somewhat brief as well. As we traditionally do, just sharing the correspondence that we have received. This is an interesting one. The document in your upper left is a thank you card, obviously a handwritten thank you card. And this was based on an extrication that our crew responded to. So I think it's very telling. The latter part of that statement is this card isn't enough, but I had to send something. So one of our customers is basically sharing their gratitude. The document on the far left, this was actually handed to one of our deployed members that went to LA. So they didn't know how to express their thanks, so they gave the firefighters this note of thanks. So I thought that was very nice. The center one is kind of falling in line with what we share virtually every month, is another thank you for smoke detector installation and battery change out. The far right one, if this doesn't grab your emotional strings, nothing will. This little guy, I take somewhat of offense to this. This little guy dressed up as a fire chief, a little premature in his career, I think. But this was, school was out. He dressed up in his fire chief's outfit. Mom brought him down to the station, and the crew at Station 5 took care of the young man. So
Very cool.
yeah, but he's a little bit ambitious, ambitious, obviously fire chief. This is something that we do, but we don't have a lot of these. This is actually Alex Chapin, Lieutenant Chapin, was selected to be part of the Colorado Task Force. So Chief Smith, Clymer, how many do we have? 3?
There's 6 now.
Six now.
Yeah.
So just so you understand, Colorado Task Force is deployable anywhere in the world. So to me, it's pretty prestigious that we have members representative of that. Obviously, Chief Smith has been deployed multiple times for the hurricanes last year. But this is a big deal for Lieutenant Chapin to be selected. So we're pretty proud of Alex. Just a little press. Hopefully you've seen this. This is something we're incredibly proud of, is expanding the service area. And I'll just share this for the mayor and Mayor Pro Tem. Please understand, when we're extending our service area, this is not imposing additional work. This is an area we currently respond to. This is just the right thing. We're cleaning it up from a tax-based perspective. This will go into the rural's hands. Where we stand with this is we will probably ask the rural board to move forward with an inclusion election. So that'll be court ordered. That'll kind of cut out a step. We do feel like we could get the petitions, but logistically, it's really unnecessary and complicated because they have to be notarized and everything else. So strong support. Very excited to bring both or all 3 of those geographical areas into our response area. And then we've talked about this for the second time this year. Our crews saved a horse. We don't schedule these, but if we had the opportunity, based on fanfare, we would.
Yeah.
So crews did a fantastic job. So I start this out, and I just want to share with the board that next month, I would like to do a formal presentation on the Regional Communications Center request. And the reason I want to make this such a formal process is this is going to get very political very quick. And there's some frustration with this. And the frustration is, I firmly believe, as the fire chief, is territorial. It's no different than don't build in my backyard. Okay, we are a growing community and we need to be prepared for that. And as someone who's experienced the effectiveness of a regional communication center, I'm a strong advocate. This is where we need to go. We are on the verge of needing to upgrade technology as well as consoles in our communication centers, as well as the 4 other communications or PSAPs in our region. If we pull these resources, we can invest into better technology, later technology, and as you 2 heard at the awards banquet or LPD awards, I agree. It is the cornerstone of our community. It is our Achilles heel at the same time. If it is weak, we are weak. It all starts with communications. But there was another thing mentioned during that awards ceremony. Those dispatchers performed with 36% deficit to their staffing. That tells you the whole story. They are having recruitment and retention issues. Every PSAP is experiencing the same. In fact, they're robbing Peter to pay Paul. So what I'm advocating is if we come together as a regional, and I'm not going to be the sole advocate on this, if the study comes back and says the fire chief's crazy, then you'll have validation. That's all I'm advocating for. But I thought it was interesting that our staff performed exceptionally well, but with 36% deficit to their staffing. So that's what I'm trying to clean up at the same time.
Chief, what is the argument against it other than maybe protecting turf? I don't understand why we wouldn't have everybody on board on something that makes sense. We not only save money, it just seems logistically so much smarter to have everything coming from a centralized area.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know that I can explain that with one exception. Okay, if I was a communication specialist in Estes, and now I knew with a regional facility, I would have to drive to Johnstown, my commute is changed greatly. I respect that. I respect that. I won't advocate something where we're gonna lose staff or put somebody out of a job. That's not, I won't stand for that, or I won't throw our vote forward for that. But there is also kind of a benefit from the fire side that is not equally shared from the law enforcement side, albeit we're public safety. When the incident goes down, we operate seamlessly. There are some control factors there. Right now, my biggest concern, and Chief Smith can elaborate on this, or Chief Ward, is when I came here, I remember going to each of the stations with Chief Ward. One of the projects that he was working on is closest unit. We were bragging about the fact that we were going to get to a closest unit response to include our ability to see Weld County units. That was in 2021. We stand here today, we cannot see Weld County units. That is not the best situation for a growing community. So it's things like that that we have been trying to pursue that we haven't been able to achieve. Whether it's cost, if you pull these monies together, we could potentially go there very quickly. But if we continue to divide the limited funds amongst 5 PSAPs, we're going to struggle for many years to come.
You use the word control, and I want to make sure I understand what you're saying there. You mean control by yourself as a chief and maybe control by the head of another department? Is that the issue, or what do you mean by control?
Well, I mean, the PDs, LPD, Fort Collins Police Services, they are the overseers of the communication PSAPs in their respective communities. What was interesting, and I'm coming to your answer here. Okay, I'm sitting next to an assistant chief from PFA at a meeting the other day. He described his concerns equal to ours, which is he can't get a foot in the door. They pay for 3 dispatchers in Fort Collins, PFA does, but it's controlled by the police. Okay, I'm not in a turf war with police. What I am in a turf war is I'm a stakeholder. I should have a voice and I should have some immediacy in corrective action. So for example, okay, Chief Smith gave me a laundry list of things that we are not able to address because we don't have that voice. Our voice, and please don't take this as me throwing anybody under the bus, is our IT director. I don't believe the IT director understands our operation. Technically, he's got more insight to the technicalities or the technical side than I do. If we were to need his technical expertise on a communications issue, he would immediately be our liaison and spokesperson at that specific time. But that's not where we are. We'll go down that path when we start investing in technology. But right now we have radios that we pay an exorbitant amount of money for. And those radios, when you key up, typically would say your name. What that does is gives the incident commander immediacy. If somebody is in an emergency situation, they know exactly who's in trouble. We can't get our radios updated right now based on our standing in line with IT. That's unacceptable. That's unacceptable.
Does it in any way affect, where the dispatch center is, or that's unrelated?
Great question. So City Manager Thompson was at a meeting a couple weeks ago, and I was there with him. It was a town manager meeting, and fire chiefs were invited as well as police chiefs. Myself and Chief Charles were there. It was at Lita. And the importance here is Lita they're moving south, one building. It's a replication of the current building, and they're basically filling this.
In Johnstown?
Yes.
Okay.
That's where I'm advocating we go.
Okay.
And if we get on board, I mean, the technology is there. They have the ability to basically invest in more technology, but we're getting ready to basically break up the funding. 5 different ways. And it makes no sense to me.
Got it, okay.
And if I'm wrong, I'll take the hit.
If I could, Chief, you mentioned, your opening comment was you'd like to do a formal presentation. Are you talking to this board?
Yeah,
Okay, if I could, secondary to that is, would you be able to have any of the other stakeholders here, your peers, if you would, to be able to listen to the presentation, so we can get a little bit of feedback from them too? Is that appropriate in your opinion?
I think it's a good idea.
Okay.
I hadn't considered that. So the other 3 stakeholders being Thompson Valley EMS, Berthoud, and LPD. So to that point, we had this conversation, myself, Thompson Valley, Chief Robinson, Chief Charles, all 3 of us are uniform in our agreements that we should push forward for a communication study. Chief Duran at the time was not supportive of it, okay, and I respect that. But to his credit, he had said that 3 or 4, we gotta go. I will move forward with our recommendation for the study. So what I had done a few weeks ago is I went to the LEDA meeting and I presented on behalf of the LFRA fire chief, stating that I would like an RFP on a regional communication study. The concern and what really kind of shut this down was, how much is this study gonna cost? Well, you don't know what you don't know. So I simply asked for an RFP to be developed. That was met with a little bit of pushback, quite frankly, amongst the board. And part of the pushback was literally our IT director, which is, respectfully, Jim, I think is inappropriate, because the 4 stakeholders of the communication center have agreed that we can push forward. I'll blame it on a lack of communications. So I'll take that hit. But LEDA ultimately has agreed in April to formulate a workshop of basically participants in the process to develop kind of the ground rules for the study, and then we will move forward. That will be a facilitated discussion. And the reason it's facilitated is because, unfortunately, Kimberly Colt, who is the CEO of LEDA, is getting backlash from people. And it's primarily from communications personnel and supervisors, which I think is unfortunate. I'm the one that asked for it. She's taken the hit.
One more follow-up on that, Chief. So in the event you did have some of your peers or people that are interested, stakeholders in this, is it appropriate to say that they're a board or management, their management is behind them doing this? I mean, one of them saying, yes, this is fine, but if the board's saying, yeah, this sounds good, their boards, have they gone that far to say, yeah,
No,
maybe possibly do an RFP or look into this further?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a board decision at that point. We're doing research to present to the board.
Right, I mean,
Yeah.
to make their case stronger, that's what I'm trying to get at. As they present it to the other stakeholders, that our board, our management team is behind us looking at an RFP to do this. So it's not,
Yeah, I mean, I guess that would lend some, I mean,
That's my
we are
point.
going down that track
Good.
of basically formulating an RFP. My point is, an RFP doesn't cost us anything other than any kind of service.
I got it.
Um,
Thanks, Chief. Fair enough.
So just, I'm sorry, Jim, just to catch you up, this is about the Regional Communications Center and requesting an RFP through LEDA. So it's at this point, the April 2nd meeting of LEDA will basically have a workshop, a facilitated workshop of stakeholders to basically develop the RFP. So that's where we're at.
Chief, I might be getting ahead of the game here because you're gonna go all through this next meeting, right, for us?
Sure.
So besides the control issues and the RFP issue, usually a centralization project is expensive up front. Got new equipment, right? You gotta consolidate, get all your pieces together. And then over the long run, you'll get a payback by saving. Is that what we're expecting here? Again, I may be
No,
wrong.
I think it's far greater than that. First of all, LEDA is literally developing their facility now. I mean, we toured that facility. They are well on their way with already the plans to basically add the additional consoles to support this. I mean, we are at an absolute perfect time, but the clock is ultimately ticking because each of the PSAPs is at the same time requesting 911 surcharge fees so they can update their consoles. So I don't want to say I'm throwing a roadblock, but I'm throwing a roadblock is before we invest in all these consoles, let's see what a regional communication center could potentially bring through this project.
Part of the discussion that'll take place is that they already have the backup dispatch center for all the PSAPs. So that's going into their new building. They already had it,
Take care of that.
but our wildfire folks are moving into that old center. So they're gonna already build another backup dispatch center for all the PSAPs to use. So that helps speak to this conversation. That money's already being spent either way.
Yeah.
Your request is really that we take a regional approach.
Yeah, I
Got it.
we would be at the tip of the spear. Everything is out there. It becomes basically a public safety hub for everything.
Yeah.
Now, Fort Collins is pretty adamant that they're not interested. I respect that. Anytime you do a communication center, you have to have some degree of redundancy. So, I mean, from superficially, immediately, I would say you become our backup and vice versa. So it actually could work out well. We won't have to get into a territorial or turf war. We just say, Fort Collins, you're the largest entity, you become the backup. And all other entities are coming together. And there is a chance, and actually the study that I'm gonna present to you, which was the 2016 study saying $3.2 million savings then, advocated multiple approaches, okay? One was a satellite facility to accommodate some of the folks in Estes. The other one was a partial regionalization. So you start small, and then as it builds out, okay, more participants can come and play. So,
10 years old though.
say again?
10 years.
Exactly,
Yeah.
but to your point, if we were saving 3.2 million, and this wouldn't be a direct $3.2 million savings to the city, the whole, all collective partners would amount to 3.2, but that's in 2016 dollars. We know technology expenses have gone through the roof, so.
Chief, just ballpark, what percentage does City of Loveland pay? Like, are they 50%, 40%? Maybe an unfair question. I'm just-
I'd be guessing, so I'm not gonna
Okay.
throw that. But I mean, obviously, Fort Collins being the biggest user, and then it would come down to us and the sheriff's department to be the second user.
Well, I would guess we're probably looking at least a couple $1 million here locally, based on a 2016 study. Between the city and the authority, looks like a lot of savings there.
I think it is a great opportunity. No harm, no foul. If the RFP is some exorbitant rate or, we still settle on it's not the right thing, then that's fine. It's personnel hours and it's literally all the stakeholders contributing to the RFP.
If we're allowing public comment, Chief Carmesino.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Chief Carmesino?
Can you hear me, Chief?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
So along those lines with what the chief was talking about, I was sitting at the meeting when all agencies, Loveland, Fort Collins, Jackson County, Estes Park, all requested to see if LEDA would pay the $6.7 million for the upgrade of all their consoles. And in addition to that, they asked LEDA to see if they would pick up and do a maintenance contract with all agencies as well. So they've already come to LEDA and asked them to do that. LEDA's question back to them is, if you're asking us to pay for all the console updates and for a maintenance contract, why don't we just go to a regional dispatch center? So they did ask this question of them, and the chief brings up good points about it because that's what they had already been asked. Some other things, like the chief had mentioned, this regional concept is huge here in Larimer County. Just as a perspective, we have a regional EOC, we have a regional GIS group, we have a regional PIO group, we have a regional damage assessment group, we have a regional communication task force, we have a regional group with Pulse Broadband, and I forget what the company is up in Estes Park. We have a regional group that's on the Johnstown Mass Casualty Incident Group, and then also working on the CAD connections between us and Weld County. So the regional concept is operating in all these other aspects. So like the chief mentioned, they're confused on why they're asking them to pay for everything, but they don't want to do a regional concept when we have all these other examples where it is working. That's all I got. Thanks, Chief.
To add to that, the 6.2 million that he's talking about, so you divide that out proportionately to the 5 PSAPs. The reality is we just had to raise the surcharge based on tariffs. So they've raised the surcharge on a 911 call. So in essence, we're running out of money and options to basically bring in revenue. So to divide it out and let technology outrun you, to me is a challenge. So. You heard part of the conversation out there, so I don't know if you have questions.
Pardon, I apologize, I'm late, I got noticed in the hallway for a bit on the phone with Brian too, because he was in there and then called me. And I just heard what happened.
That didn't take long.
Yeah.
We'll follow up on that later too, but, yeah, I've had both individual as well as regional over my career, and, regional, there's inherent savings whenever you can regionalize things. You know, it's a change that you gotta deal with staff that you have now, what to do with staff, are they gonna go and work in the new, what are those pay scales versus where they're at, there's all of those things, and so you got some challenges on that, you got an ownership issue of how you could direct that, and that comes back to the formation of the structure and what influence you have. Some, and I recently switched before I was in one, fire, we had a regional fire in the Phoenix area, right? We all dispatched through the same center. You had 2, which was Mesa and Phoenix, both had their own and interconnected before that, because like in fire and like in police, Washington was different. Washington, we would call on calls to all our neighboring jurisdictions. It was the closest available unit. And it was basically, again, based on serving the community, regardless of where the borders were at, whoever was closest. But then you have, do everybody meet the standards to participate in that mutual aid? And then you gotta have mutual aid agreements. So it's complex when you're doing it that way. Police and fire, you know, historically, they've been separate. So in Washington State, the Seattle area, they're separate, police and fire. We were the comm center for police, as well as the PSAP for police for the region, in the community I had. So fire was done out of Bellevue. So everybody has different positions that they take. My recent one, police side, we were in the regional dispatch. We switched and went to the state dispatch system on police, and there was reasons for that. The biggest reason was control of the board and the cost. So what was happening, they were putting costs on all the individual jurisdictions based on the percentage basin, but with no ability for us to influence that outcome. So some of the things they were doing, we didn't agree with. And some of the technologies they were deploying, we didn't agree with because it didn't serve in our best interest. And so we had no way to change that. And so the only way for us to change was to move to a different format. We also had a high turnover rate there occurring in that dispatch center, which tells me it was probably a management issue or otherwise. So there was things like that we couldn't effectuate the change because they reported to Phoenix in that Phoenix structure, which is a complex structure to begin with. So those are the things, is when you set it up and you join, you got to make sure you have a seat at the table and a seat that could influence the outcome if you so desire. And to me, that's the key. But when you look at the cost and you look at the efficiency, it's fine. I mean, one of the communities I've had in time, we provided service to 3 fire districts. The district board provided us the cash, we provided the service, but we also did dispatch, you know, in that environment. Likewise on police, where we did the regional, we were the regional PSAP for the Seattle market. The mapping, the call volume, things like that is pretty simple. And it's not a complex, it's, you know, complex. You got more to dispatch when the call comes in, you got a bigger area to concern yourself with, more complexities to the type of calls and the backup and so forth. But again, it is more efficient. And so I agree with the chief there. The question is, can we get past all our individual thoughts and concerns with the ownership and leadership and all of that, and get to a good resting point? If you achieve that, it's amazing, because then we know no boundaries and we serve at a higher level as well. And that's the ultimate goal, is service to the community.
right? And so if you drive the decision tree based on that, not based on the other factors, you normally will end up in a regional because you just look at available resources and you get them to the scene. If you have the mutual aid agreements and all the other things we could talk about that are layers underneath that, but certainly, so I'm not against it. And, you know, whatever the internal discussions and all the things that I'm trying to figure out now of what's going on, that I can overcome from my position. So taking it to a board or otherwise, that's me providing leadership to my organization if there's a hiccup in that. And so I'm happy to do that. I'm happy to open that door, and I'm not against doing it, you know, an RFP. The one thing I do caution the chief on, which would have been probably what I brought up during the additional appropriation, I'm not a big fan of doing additional appropriations early in the year. So I'm like, why did you miss it in the budget process? And I would ask that question here. If we were going to do an RFP, we had to make sure we cover that when we have all the other discussions over the budget constraints and not do additional, especially in our position that we are in Loveland right now, that I shouldn't have to do many of those. Carry forwards I get the carry forward of the capital and the other things associated with, but those I would hiccup on. So likewise for the RFP, there'll be a cost on the back end of it. You're not going to go do an RFP or an RFQ. If you're just hiring a consultant to come in and give us guidance, it's probably better to do an RFQ than RFP because you want to get the best. You don't want to get somebody because of the cheapest and give us a less than satisfactory product at the end. So I would recommend the RFQ, and it allows us a little more flexibility.
I agree. And from that, I mean, we don't even know what the cost will be. So that was the process, whether it's RFQ, RFP, and then it'll be dispersed equally or proportionately to the participating agencies. So it's not going to be a big cost for us. Andrew?
Well, I just wanted to clarify, there was no additional appropriation. That was,
yes,
it was 100% carried.
Okay. Yeah, I was just got off the phone and
Yeah, we clarified everything been talked about and approved in the past. There was nothing new being discussed here today that was being asked for.
Okay.
You know, it was just a technicality, nothing more.
Chief,
I have a question, Chief. Chief, I got a question for you or Jim, either one, on understanding the regionalization here, because you both talked about control and people feeling like, you know, maybe the fire department didn't have a voice and things they would like. Can a board be created where everybody has a voice on a board? So there must be a way to do that.
That's exactly how you do it.
That's how you do it. That's your best landing spot, is to have representatives from each of the jurisdictions who participate have a seat at the table, and then you could have those discussions, and there'll be disagreements. We all disagree on a lot of things. But that's where you start to have success, because then you really are pushing it from each perspective. Now, every one of those jurisdictions, as well as entities served, may have different needs and feel that they're not being served. And there's challenges with that, but in the end, it's usually more efficient, more effective, and better service to those that we're serving. And I'll just openly say that now, because I believe in that. So I'm not far off from where the chief said of going down that path. And when I got a chance to go out and see the new facility and what the potential it is, its location, all of those things are excellent. You you talk about location, you might have a more secure location or more offsite. For me, a lot of times, and I'll just share openly, and it in a meeting, but sometimes dispatch centers in certain environments, this is a separate facility, and there's some positive attributes to that. Now, you got the EOC right there. To me, that's exciting, because you want your EOC near, or at least have a way, if your system goes down in a major emergency, you still have the ability to communicate with your EOC and those getting the message out if you have multiple channels that you're operating on and multiple frequencies and so forth. But not to go into those details, that's a big positive. You should always have a comm center near where your EOC is at. And we have that opportunity here by having the regional EOC at that location. So there are some building the structure, and I might have put it in a different location, a more secure location than an exposed location. And things like that. We kind of talked about that when we toured the building, but outside of that, it's a great opportunity for us. So now, like the chief's mentioned, we're putting everything new. It's an opportunity to, and everybody else is looking to update their stuff. It's a great opportunity to take those pots of money and put it into one center that might potentially have savings. So I'm not against it at all. I think the discussion, if nothing else, is worthwhile to have. I think doing an RFP, RFQ, whatever the case is a good thing, because then we could see it what those benefits are that are beyond our thought processes, but have any experience. And then you can make an informed decision off of what that's developed out of that.
Oh, a quick question. So not to go down the rabbit hole of RFP versus RFQ, but the intent of the RFP is to help you define the group of players, look at what the possibilities are, then you can make a more intelligent RFQ. That's how we used to do it in business world from high-tech industry, right? So that helps you define your definition of what you want as our part of the RFQ. Does that make sense, or?
It does. The only reason I said RFQ sometimes the people that do RFPs want to secure or have relationships with those that they want to drive you to. And so they start to define your product in a certain way. So I just upfront tell me what I need to go do, and then I'll go find the person that's best to do it.
Exactly.
Right, and do an RFQ the second time if I had to.
Sure, that makes sense.
But yeah, either way.
All right, to your point, our first hurdle though is literally finding out what that price is.
Exactly.
Don't worry about the study, it's the price. That's where the first stumbling block is. So,
Okay.
and I think it's gonna be reasonable. I may be grossly underestimating at 50,000, but I don't think it's gonna be 150,000, which has been tossed around. And I may be wrong. I mean, you've got more experience with that, but no harm, no foul, right? If it's 150,000, we say we can't afford it, then throw it in the trash.
Mayor,
Do we need a motion to support the chief's efforts or?
I literally just wanted to inform you, I wanted to give, in all reality, give Jim an opportunity to know that we're gonna do a formal presentation of the 2016 study at next month. Cause I think you're, again, I feel like I'm bombarding you with a bunch of information, trying to get.
Oh, you are just in line.
All right. As long as I'm at the top of the list, that's all I'm worried about.
Okay.
but piggybacking on what you said, Mayor, I think the whole board is very supportive,
Yeah.
obviously, of what
Yeah.
you're trying to do there.
I might need body armor when all this
Okay.
is over with, so
John, comments or,
I'm good.
okay,
Sorry, that was supposed to be
No,
quick.
I'm good.
no,
I'm
good
good.
conversation.
So the next item, hand in hand with Lita, we talked about this, Jim was privy to an actual presentation by Kimberly in regards to Lita's complaint with CenturyLink. And this goes back to the Alexander Mountain Fire. There was only one communication link to Estes, and it was in a compromised position to the point that's part of our resources. We're focused on protecting that line of communications to Estes Park, because we lose 911 service to them, there's no means of communicating with them. So I thought Kimberly did a good job. That is now, I've done a written deposition with our legal support, as have the sheriff and a couple others. So we're waiting for that to move forward, but I just wanted to give you some information there.
I'm sorry, what's the deposition for?
The deposition is basically for Lita's complaint against CenturyLink. So this is going to go to the courts.
Redundancy.
Are there any backup lines through Lyons to Estes, or are they all up
That's
Hardin
what-
Canyon?
That's what they created. So basically, at one point they were, or at least CenturyLink claims they were in place. Kimberly describes it as them literally taking jumper cables and transferring them over. And that basically or cut the link.
Gotcha.
So they have gone down this path before in 2013 with the flood, the same issue.
That's what I was
surfaced.
asking.
Yeah, this is not new, but they are the behemoth. So Lita's going after them again. And I think it's the right move, because we did effectively redeploy resources that could have been focused on our community members' homes. So. And I will just, I'll compliment Kimberly, she's just doing a fantastic job of basically pushing forward. The extended rural district response boundary. I've already addressed this with the other board members. I want to share this with Jim. The perspective, so we have 3 geographical areas that we respond to today that are outside of our 187 square miles. Those areas we respond to, they are not paying into the district. So when the district was formed, the rural district was formed for whatever reason. They either weren't there and now it's developed. Point being is we have gone to those 3 geographical areas, held town halls, and had extremely supportive response to inclusion. So what that would do is we're going to pursue an inclusion election to bring them in to the service area. And what that'll do is give us additional tax base. The return for them, and we didn't give any guarantees, is if you are now in our service area and you do mitigation to our standard, we'll give you a gold standard letter to take to your insurance firm, potentially reduce your insurance, or in many cases, get insurance. Right now, those geographical areas are struggling to secure insurance. So when we shared that, an elderly lady came up to me, emotional, saying, my house is worthless. I can't get insurance and I can't sell it. And I had planned on selling it in 2 years. I can't do it. So she felt like we were godsend in coming to her with that. So it's been very supportive. We felt like we could do the petition process, so nobody felt like it was kind of ramrod. We're now to the point, we've got enough support. We don't even feel like we need to go with the petition. We can go right to the court-ordered election. So that's working on the rural side, so that'll be brought back to this board, just kind of updating you as to where we are. So,
Quick question, Chief, not knowing on the district formation, but is it 50 plus 1% of both value and ownership, or is it just 50 plus 1% to form a district of sign off to go to the vote? And
so this isn't a form, this is inclusion. They can literally do this individually, and I'll let Emily jump in so I don't.
Yeah, just so I understand that process. I know the area you're talking about because you gave me a map when you was a briefing.
Emily,
Yeah, there are a couple of different ways property can be included. One is to have individual property owners present a petition to the rural district and ask for their house only to be included. I've used that process, and I don't represent the rural, Linda does, but I'm going to speak from my experience. I've used that process for very small communities of, say, 10 houses or less. Beyond that, it gets challenging to get all of the property owners to move on the same page and at the same pace. So when we get larger communities, the more effective way to seek inclusion is for the district to pass a resolution saying, we, the district, propose to include the following area within our boundaries. You define what that is. And then an election is held. And the property owners and residents within the defined area get to vote. And it's like any other standard election, 50% plus 1 carries the day. That's a lot more effective for larger areas, particularly areas that have a lot of second homes or people who may reside at other places during parts of the year. And I understand that is the process the rural's taking. So I think the short answer to your question is it's a 50% plus 1 election. And if the rural gets that, the entire area comes in.
That's another clarifying question.
Sure.
Thank you. If I can, Emily, on that 50 plus 1, is it strictly then ownership? So if somebody has a 2,000 acre ranch and somebody has a 10,000 square foot lot, they both each have one equal vote, regardless of value, regardless of area?
Well, so voters for a special district election are very, very oddly defined by Colorado law. You are an eligible elector within a district if you are registered to vote anywhere in the state of Colorado. That could be Larimer County, could be Mesa County, could be Summit County. We don't care. And you either live within the district's boundaries or you own property within the district's boundaries. So it doesn't have anything to do with the size of the lot or the number of buildings. If you had a 50-acre ranch and there were 4 people residing there and the rest of it was owned by an LLC, and those 4 people were registered to vote somewhere in Colorado, Denver County, you would have 4 voters, right? 4 residents registered to vote in the state of Colorado, no property owners. At the same time, you could have a half-acre residential lot, and there are 2 property owners, and they live in Grand Junction and they rent the house. In that case, you would have the 2 property owners and potentially the renters serving as eligible electors. So you can't look at a plot of land and know how many voters there are. You have to drill down deeper into who lives there, who owns it, and where are they registered to vote. We sometimes even have voters who are registered in Colorado, but they spend half the year in Texas or Florida, and we're sending them ballots to other corners of the country.
And then last question, do utilities considered ownership if they have improvements in those areas?
No, because, well, I mean, they are owners, but they're not voters because you have to be registered to vote. And corporations, trusts, governmental agencies, they can't register to vote. So you actually have to be a human person.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Those are all clarifying because every state's different. Arizona was 50 plus one of value and ownership. So a utility company may have greater value that had 500 kV lines running through multiple large parcels of ground. If they weren't developed parcels of ground than everyone else, the utility, if they just voted for it, they could enter a district. So those are challenges in every state. That's why I asked the clarifying question, because when we go out to do the vote, you always want to know who those individuals are, right? So.
Yeah, absolutely. I can tell you the strategy has already been tried to be manipulated because some of them own multiple plots, including our president of the rural district, albeit he's not part of it. It is interesting because they're like, do I get 3 votes? Yeah. We're trying to work.
Oh, sorry, Chief, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
Well, to Jim's point, and this gets into other fun nuances of law, we do pay attention to who those corporate owners are. Not because they're going to cast a vote, but because they can provide significant influence in their side of the campaigning, whether they think it's a good idea or a bad idea. Your private property owners, corporations, trusts, LLCs, ranches, they have significantly greater latitude in talking to the voters about what they think than the governmental agencies do. And that comes down to the restrictions under the Colorado Fair Campaign Practices Act. So it's not that we don't care about them or we don't pay attention to them or we don't talk to them. But their involvement in the election tends to be more on the influencing people who have votes side because they don't have one at the end of the day.
Yeah, I thought it was gonna be a short eye, so.
Man.
I got this one, I know it's gonna be short, the next one may be a little bit. So the grants update, I wanna take advantage of the fact that Lieutenant Dedecker's here as well as Chief Smith. Our HMP grant, this is post Alexander Mountain Fire. The 3 fires that had occurred, basically the state is offering opportunities for each of those to receive $1.3 million. So we have, Chief Smith has actually worked on this grant and is making great headway. So we're pretty confident, and I'll let him speak here in a second. Pretty confident that we have a good shot at that. We've had a lot of people supporting us on that. The CWDG grant, Gateway to the Rockies, this is the one that we're advocating, remove all political boundaries and basically just work the gateway. This is up to $10 million. So there are a number of strategic partners in that process. I will say that is a federal, so that has a lot of ties to our current situation of unknowns. We don't know where that's going to go. So, I don't know. Do you want to share anything?
The
Chief,
hazard
could you
mitigation.
start by saying what's a HMP grant?
Hazard mitigation grant program.
Okay.
Yeah, and that one is federal. Give money given to the state manages it. So we've been getting a lot of support. Lieutenant Dedecker and Andrew have been helping a ton. Casey Jackson from the city, grant administrator, I think is her title. Grant accountant, thank you. Has been helping, and then the firm that the state uses to finish the submission for the application has been helping as well. So that should be done and submitted Friday, but it is federal, so it could get influence down the road. There's really not much else to that other than trying to.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of correspondence today. I'm sure you are regarding the current situation with the administration. And I'll just be upfront with you. Part of the question is reimbursement on deployments. So there is some, because we've got a lot of requests for reimbursement out there on that. So I have shared with our staff, we got to be very cautious. If a situation would occur, we got to be very cautious as to what we commit to, because we certainly don't have the resources internally to absorb those kind of costs. So more to come on that. One positive note that's not listed in this grant listing is the grant that city utilities went for. So that is the watershed, emergency watershed protection grant. They did get confirmation those funds have been secured. Now what they're doing is basically through an RFP process, trying to figure out who's going to do the work. So that is an engineered process to control the watershed. We will probably have to go through the RFP process according to Sharon. I talked to her yesterday, just to basically say, here are our qualifications to do the work of mitigation. So Sharon and I are in contact or in communication on that. It's positive, and we would love to do the work. I was just very happy. I was talking to Hickenlooper's office yesterday, trying to move it forward if it wasn't already confirmed, but it is confirmed, so.
And that first grant, you're keeping Congressman Nagoose in the loop because he's pretty involved in the fire.
I absolutely. So
Okay.
my time in his office 2 weeks
Okay.
ago,
Okay.
we had that exact conversation.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
and just to be bipartisan, I talked to Lauren Bobart at the same
Absolutely.
time, so,
Yes.
but it's more Nagoose,
Yeah.
so.
I appreciate that.
All right, so LFRA staffing report, and again, this is out of respect to the city manager here. I have shared this with the rural board. I want to do a formal presentation. Again, Chief Smith has done a great job at helping us track this. So we were in a situation, and Jim, I know you're very in tune to this. I think your previous fire chief called it generational exit or a generational tsunami. So what am I referring
He
to?
called it tsunami to make it just, and he had a picture of the big waves coming in and.
We've got our logo on design, I
But
can
yeah,
assure you.
here we
But-
go.
But what they experienced in Scottsdale is a little different but similar. So they had a mass exodus based on retirements. We are in a situation, the rural has done us a great favor in providing us funding for these 13 positions. 6 of those positions, 3 rovers and three roving lieutenants, 3 roving engineers, are very specific to our staffing shortage. Our problem is we can't fill those positions because we don't have the bench strength. So we're in a very similar situation. So our promotional process starts in August. What we have used those funds for is to fill those seats, okay, to keep those units in service with the qualified people riding up or lieutenant being paid overtime. Now, where this gets complicated is with this staffing shortage, the $1 million has certainly put us in a deficit. What we are doing now is browning out the squad. Remember, the squad is at Station 6, McWhinney Boulevard. Okay, there are 2 units there. The tower ladder, our most expensive $2.2 million piece of apparatus, and the squad. The design of the squad is a wide footprint. It's got the biggest service area of any other unit, minus the battalion chief. Okay, what that does is takes low acuity calls, those lower priority calls. It picks those up to maintain the in-service of the tower and other larger units. Rounding out the squad puts the tower out as first due, even on medical calls. And I'll give you a prime example, and Chief Ward brought this to our attention yesterday. We had a cardiac arrest in Station 6's jurisdiction. The tower was in service and the squad was in service. The squad went from Station 6. They got on scene first, which is exactly the way it's designed. Okay, this is the most critical of critical calls. Life is at risk. The tower, same dispatch time, same station, arrived 1 minute, 24 seconds later. So I'll challenge anybody on the board, myself included, to hold your breath for 1 minute, 24 seconds. None of us want to do it. None of us are capable of doing it. So that's the difference. While I say we are not putting the community at risk, that's part that I can't defend. Okay, is I got the largest, most expensive unit basically running medical calls when we brown out the squad. We need to look at this, address this, and I want to share this with the board as to our financial concerns. It got more complicated this past week, or I guess the past 2 weeks. So we have the highest level medical physicals in the fire service. I'm incredibly proud of that. That's taking care of your people the way you should. In that process, we had 7 people not meet the standard. Okay, our policy is very simple. They put their crew at risk, they put themselves at risk, they put our community at risk if they're not at that standard. We pulled them. Okay, when we pulled them offline, that affected the squad and it caused the brownout of the squad. Now, there's a process to get them back online. Okay, they got to meet the standard. And we've already had one successfully do that. But I don't feel comfortable as a fire chief of setting a medical standard, having somebody fail and saying, hey, I'm going to change the standard. That's not the way you do business. That's not right for the customer. It's not right for the employee. It's not right for the organization. So,
Okay, a couple questions, Chief, and yeah, Scottsdale probably different. We took over the role. And we were 17 years into that, and then I bought back the old pension because we didn't acquire their pensions when they came over. So we had firefighters that were 35 years into fire service, waiting to get to their 20 to pull their state pension. They still had their 401s from the rule board. And so I bought back some of that previous year because there was a mess up at the state. And so I absorbed that as a city, it's just the right thing to do. But then it got everybody to 20 and we had the buybacks. But literally the whole department, except for the growth in the department, was the original from that. And many of them had 15, 20 years in service before they came over to the city. So you had firefighters at that other tail end of a career, a very long career, hard career, right, to get there. And so I wanted to help that. So we had a mass leaving, but by buying back the time, some went into the drop program at the state, and I won't get into the details of that. So we bought a little more time in that curve, but between 2023, 4, and then a little bit into now 2025, we were going to lose about 70% of the department. So it wasn't that, it was the skill set. So we also made some other changes. You used to have to sit in the other position for 30 days. Basically 7 or 10 shifts, depending on if they're on Kelly days or not. Won't get into that either. But at the end of the day, we end up saying, day one, that when you bump, we're going to pay you that for sitting in that chair. And so we changed our policy to do that. But what we did when we hired our extra rovers, and I started hiring extra, back in 2019, 18 to build up, so they have the skill set when they have to sit in the other chairs, and that opportunity to grow within the department, which meant we had more recruits because everybody knew down the road they can get promoted a lot easier and a lot quicker because everybody tends to stay in the department. But that we post-loaded it, and so when we had our rovers, I did not go to the lieutenant level. I did recently because I was going to have a little bit of weight. I really brought in the firefighter side because I wanted those that were, maybe an engineer to bump up to the next chair, or, bump into the captain chair, or bump into the BC chair, or whatever the case may be, so they can get some reps doing that. And by paying them immediately, more we're willing to do that and take on that role. Versus if I hired, like in this case, lieutenants, and have rovers lieutenants, you're carrying that cost. Now, because of vacations, everything, you could say, okay, 3 makes sense, but it's a higher cost. And I then don't have the experience level, even though you just promoted 3 more, you're still stuck when some of those 3 leave because they're probably the more tenured firefighters that are going to bump to lieutenant anyhow. Now you have a double hit. You have the inexperience of the lower level and you don't have the experience of the upper. So not that you guys know all that, you covered all that, I'm sure, in your analysis and everything, but those are the kind of questions I would have asked when you came forward and said we need to put lieutenants out there. And I would have said, I'll give you rovers all day long at the firefighter, only because I know lieutenants are probably near retirement too. Even those that you bump to be rovers, you still have some life expectancy that's shorter. And then you don't want to have the inexperienced staff trying to bump into those higher ones, or to hire from outside, because then you're picking up somebody else's problem 9 times out of 10. But needless to say.
So we're speaking the same language, okay? So it gets a little bit more complex on our side. So we're doing all that. And part of my conversation is the world has given us funds through 2026. We're using that to get us to August so we can promote people so they can become eligible. Our system, I think we've streamlined it. These guys have done a fantastic job to make sure that our career matrix puts qualified people in the seat. The issue is I'm at 161% overtime. My overtime is woefully underfunded, and we have tried to basically true that up. So that's the other side of the equation that, I know there's been conversations, and this is where I really need to have some time with you, is there's conversations on the other side of the street that don't understand this side of the street.
Your hour and a half just became 3, Chief.
I'll take every minute. But what I'm trying to say is we have a complex situation, and I won't take any more time here. We want to do a presentation so everybody's on the same page and you hear the other side of the story.
Clarifying question, everything Jim brought up certainly important and an issue, but our real issue, as I understand, we're doing a brownout because of lack of money. Is that correct?
Well, lack of qualified personnel that we're bumping up everybody that we can. We're using overtime, but I'm also trying to be conservative on the overtime. So the way this works, if one person calls out, okay, we're not going to brown out the squad. It's the second person, okay, instead of basically trying to staff the squad, we take that staffing and we redeploy it to other units to keep them in service. So I'm trying to be conservative, knowing that I was at 161% overage of the overtime. Now, one could say that's pretty piss poor management of a budget. Well, that's the reality of where we are. And that's what I have been trying to put forth. And to your all's credit, this is not dissing anybody. The rural has stepped up and given us that relief window. This is the reason why we got to figure out this financial model and transition to a more formidable, predictable model with some financial backing. That wasn't a speech.
Well, I know you'll have this conversation with Jim, but this has been a concern for years, the amount of money that we're spending on overtime. Correct me if I'm wrong here. If we were to take that same amount of money and hire more more firefighters, we wouldn't be spending as much money. It'd actually be cheaper to have the right number of firefighters in our employ. Is that correct?
I know where Jim's getting. If I'm not paying benefits, it's cheaper to pay overtime. It's not the right thing to do to the personnel. We've gone down this path of mandating people for overtime. That's how you get injuries and you burn people out.
And we had a lot of upset spouses and families as well as firefighters.
22 to be exact.
Yeah, I am really concerned about the amount of money we're spending on overtime, and I know other people are too.
Jack, a quick question.
Yes.
This is probably addressed to both Chief and then Andrea. So if you, and I'm not trying to go down a rabbit hole of personnel, but I'm just curious. So if you have 7 people that did not meet the physical criteria, how long do you give those people to meet that criteria? And then what's plan B? Because you can't have, I mean, at some point it's got to give, right?
Yeah, and that's exactly why I'm doing this today. Okay, so there is a process. It's 45-45. So they got a 45-day window, okay, to basically retest. They can retest at any point in that first 45-day window. If they fail that, okay, then they go to their next 45 days. They're offline, okay? They are prescribed a program by our fitness coordinator. So they are prescribed that program, not mandated to follow that program. Once they enter the second 45-day window, they are prescribed a program and mandated to follow that program. They then retest, okay? And if they fail that one, then they start going down a different path, and it could eventually mean termination.
Because carrying 7 people, I'm not doing the math, that's what? 7-8% of your staff? Your field people? No.
It's a significant,
Yeah,
it's a significant,
big, yeah.
you're right, it's approaching 10%.
Yeah.
And it's
So,
six shift.
6 shift per. Okay, yeah, I'm sorry, we had one volunteer, that was in that, I apologize.
Okay, but
Yeah,
nevertheless.
everybody that wears an SCBA has to go through this process to include volunteers, and we have one volunteer.
Okay, I just curious how that all worked. Thank you.
Chief, I just following up on what you said earlier, 1:26 seconds and person not holding their breath that long. I mean, that really concerns me, not only for the potential of losing a person's life, but how that would play out with the public and how they feel we are doing as a fire authority. I mean, we've got to find a way where we don't have brownouts.
Yeah, and I agree. Mr. Chairman, I want to stress this in front of the city manager. I'm calling you the city manager intentionally here. When we went down for the grocery tax and we went through this budget process, I was at ELT, and the group consensus is we were unified on this. We weren't going to make this public. And I have absolutely not said a word about any of our financial constraints, except to this body and the other body, being the rural board. And I think that's where I'm supposed to be. And I'm supposed to educate the city manager as best I can, so you can react accordingly, but it's in a forum appropriately. It's in this type of forum as opposed to a public setting where I start pounding my chest saying the fire chief needs help, okay? I have done that. I can't say that has been consistent across all departments, but I take great pride in that. I put my word to the ELT and I stuck to it. I think that's the way you're supposed to operate. So,
How will that impact accreditation too?
well, I hope we have resolution. Everything affects accreditation. When you start having change in your response times, you're not meeting that 90th percentile, which 90% of your calls have to be within that constraint. Yeah, it would affect it. It would absolutely affect it. So I think your first point is more important. How does
Well,
it affect the
absolutely.
service level that we're providing? So.
Other comments?
Appreciate the information.
Just me and my curiosity, and Chief will catch up on off time, the 45. Is that for not meeting a fitness requirement, or because you alluded to that, even though it was that they, I mean, in the sense that you said you get them a fitness, assigned task of doing that.
It's a medical screening.
So it could be medical or otherwise, but truly, are they still on payroll and still doing light duty, or what do we do with those individuals, that kind of stuff? We don't need to answer that now, but I'm gonna have questions like that when we talk about the staffing levels and things when we get to it. So if we are gonna come back and have a discussion around overtime, I'm gonna want to engage in all that. And then how much do we have built in overtime? Where, you got vacations, you got holidays, you got what's your average sick leave, and that'd be based on the other discussion of maybe the aging population and the other things that we talk about, and then how many of those are now on worker comp claims or otherwise. So I just really, when we dig into it, we'll dig into it, then I'll be more comfortable, and then could take a position during budget season what that needs to be to backfill that. And
That's all I ask, and I'm fully prepared for that, and yes, that's exactly what I want.
Once you get that hour and a half with me, but
It's 3 hours. All right, I'll turn it over to Chief Ward on some more positive stuff.
Is this gonna be quick, Chief?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll be quiet. You'll be okay.
This one, Community Safety Division, this is really an efficiency and added efficiency. It's something that David Rhodes, one of our plan reviewers, has been looking at for the last couple of years, and we were able at the very end of the year to find one of these tables that was actually a demo unit and buy it really reasonably. That's David, he's doing plan reviews, he's looking at little tiny sprinkler heads and piping and stuff on that. In the past, he had a couple screens and he'd blow things up and then close it down and get out of it and open up something else, and it was a real process. This table was designed specifically for plan reviews. So he's got the drawing on the center screen. It's hard to see. He would have his conditions, the things he's typing about his notes on that plan on the left. And he said that generally he has his code book up on the right, so he can reference things as he's going. And so it really is an efficiency piece of technology for us. To me, the best part of it is he can lay that table flat or that screen flat, and he can bring the rest of the staff, because David's further along in his career, and he has to be mentoring other people in the office to be able to take over plan reviews down the road. He can lay that flat and then bring the rest of the staff around a plan and walk them through what he's doing, what he's looking at, and be able to show them. And to me, that's almost the best piece of the advantages to that tool. So I won't read through all that. Another positive for this is a lot of the builders, designers use this Bluebeam system, and so they can be live working together, David making marks on the screen and the sprinkler system designer on the other end looking at the same thing live. So it's a great tool. Brand new. Couple updates on the Berthoud contract with the Community Safety Division. Carrie's been doing a really good job with building relationships with the Berthoud staff in town of Berthoud. And then we've had a couple significant new projects come in. It didn't start off slow with some easy ones. They've jumped right into some major projects going on in Berthoud, which I think is actually an advantage because it's really getting the accelerated into those relationship building between the town and the different people involved down there. So that's good. The annual inspections, Sarah's discovered some things that should have been addressed in the past by the contract company that was doing their inspections and wasn't. So they've got some really good kudos from Berthoud Fire and the work they're doing. They're very happy with our entire staff. We had a combined command staff meeting this morning, and both Chief Charles and Jill, their administrative director, chief of staff, had great things to say about our staff. I think the benefit to Loveland, to LFRA, one of the things we're seeing is we were able to hire our part-time inspector. And we had a record for our annual inspections for last month and the number that we did. And a lot of that is being generated by Brian, our part-time inspector, because his sole purpose is looking at the annual inspections that are out there and picking those off. He did 68 of them last month. So 122 total annual inspections in Loveland. We added the 27 in Berthoud's district that Sarah did. 149 total. That's the most we've ever done in 1 month. Even if you take the 27 for Berthoud out, it's still the most we've ever done in a month. So great job to Carrie and the staff.
And I just want to re-stress this. This is us taking on a additional service for a neighboring partner that we respond with no additional workload. I won't say additional workload, but it is a balanced workload. We brought on a part-timer at no expense to the general fund or this organization. I think that's critical to highlight.
This is some of the work that we're doing with health and safety. We're just trying to get our arms wrapped around what does this whole entire program really encompass, and this is where Chief Stark and I have been working so far. So the health and wellness, so our physicals, our frontline physicals, falls into that. Our peer fitness trainers, well-being is Dr. Richards and our peer support team. Education is a piece that we want to start building up, so we're providing education to our members on nutrition and fitness. Research, what are the things that maybe we're not doing that we need to be doing for our members. The one piece of this that's really focused on scene operations, our incident safety officer program. And then, as we talked last month, we reinstituted the safety committee that's evaluating our accidents. They're looking at workers' comp data and things like that. So the health and safety program, when we really start to look at this, is quite a few different pieces that we're trying to pull together under that one umbrella.
That's cool. So based on the grant that we got for that Health and Wellness Center, are there any requirements to give them feedback or give an organization, whether it be federal, feedback on this is what this program's done, whether it be, what illnesses that may have been caused by bad bunker gear, whatever it be, or dirty bunker gear? Is there anything along that we're responsible to give back to the community?
I'm smiling because you're reading my mind. I totally forgot. We went through an audit just this past week, and Andrea did a fantastic job coming in late in the process. We completed that audit. Part of that audit, above and beyond the financial response, was to identify things that successes. And we have had multiple, including multiple cases of cancer within this organization. So yes, we have reported those successes back to FEMA.
Very cool.
Yeah. And that's Andrea did that work. So thank you for that.
Excellent. Thank you.
Before I talk about the next two slides, which are our community engagement, a couple of things I didn't have a slide on. The new burn building supposed to be assembled this week. They ran into an issue with some powder coating, so now it's the week of March 10th. So for the rural board members, we still plan on meeting an hour early. Go over, watch the crane, watch them assemble some of the building, that kind of thing, and then we'll reschedule to get you guys actually in the building before we burn. So that starts March 10th. The wellness clinic demolition starts March 10th also. So it'll be really busy down there. The third thing that wasn't in my slides that you reminded me of is we've been talking and working on regional bunker gear. How can we come together with our regional partners and maybe streamline our bunker gear process, the amount of gear we have between all the different agencies. One of the first step that we had to do at LFRA because we were behind was we're the only department out of the 4 or 5 that wasn't getting our bunker gear inspected by an outside agency. We were doing it internally, which we wanted to change. We just didn't have the funding to do that. We're able to secure the funding from within the budget this year, so that the last 2 weeks, we still have one more week to go, I believe next week. We've had a company called Redline here, and they're a mobile truck, and they come out, they take the bunker gear all apart, they inspect it, they test it, they wash it, and then goes back to the firefighter. So our logistics team and some of our modified duty people have been really busy shuttling gear around for the last 2 weeks between stations to get all of our bunker gear inspected. So that's a really positive for our firefighters and where we're trying to go regionally. Excellent.
And if I could chime in on that, the value of the third party inspection, number one, these people do it every single day. This is their forte versus our personnel doing it on occasion. It also reduces organizational liability when you have a third party doing it. So we do that with our ladders and our hose as well.
So a couple slides on community education engagement, 5th grade science fair. This one was really somebody that Chief Dan was connected with, working on a science fair project and focused on wildland urban interface and a lot of the things that we've tried to do here at Loveland Fire and with D. Decker's team. But really cool, there's a couple videos to go along with this that they built the 2 different little houses there, one of them out of fire resistant material, the other one out of, had wood shingles and a wood fence and the trees and shrubs up next to the house. And in a garage someplace, the fire marshal with a 5th grade student had some fires and some wind simulated with a hairdryer, I believe. And
Wasn't my house.
I can see that. You got pictures?
She's got video, yeah. So they did this experiment to see the difference between the 2 houses and how well they're protected. Judging was yesterday. Have you heard anything?
Did not win.
So Chief Dan is very disappointed.
I can see that.
In that.
When you see that, it speaks to Chief Dan's passion for this, and I mean, Chief Ward and I have talked about it. This is fantastic. This is taking it to the next level, educating people, taking your passion to make a difference for the next generation. So we greatly appreciate that.
And our annual Wildlands Safety Education Day that we'll have at Station 7 in May, you may see something very similar. I think that they're gonna try and redo that and have it for a display.
Larger scale, Chief.
Possibly.
Big pine trees.
I mean, it's basically like all the burn testing that NIST and some of these other organizations do. So they had, Bodie put together like a regular house with no defensible space. And then an ignition resistant house with defensible space.
Okay.
Even I was shocked at how it was just exactly as we expected. It was really cool.
It's a great tool, great tool.
So this one is, January has shared a little bit of pictures with us before on the Safe Sitter class she did. I asked her this time to tell me what that is so we could share it with you. So grades 6 to 8, they learn safety skills, childcare skills, first aid and rescue skills, and then even some life and business skills. So really good program that January does. And from what I've heard, she's filling these classes on a regular basis. So they have them out at Station 10.
Okay,
So question, if I could, real quick. On the burn building, I'm wondering if this board, Paul and I'll already be there, but you guys are probably all busy, but would you like to attend with our board when we go to the burn building?
Available, sure.
March.
Yeah, maybe open that invitation to them.
Oh,
Yeah,
the 10th I will.
the importance there is we're trying to let you see it before we burn in it because we'll restrict entry. You won't be able to go because it's contaminated at that point. So we'll definitely send the invite out.
That's a great idea.
So.
Sorry, Chief, go ahead.
That's okay. So we have 4 people that have accepted at least an offer letter to fill out the seasonal module for Dedeckers. There'll be, I think we're still targeting the 17th. So we'll be starting here soon. And then just a couple calls to share. February wasn't as busy as January. This car fire lasted about an hour and a half or something. And mostly it was the gas tank that was leaking and just kept on reigniting. And so it was a challenge and a good experience for them to learn from. So 37th in a row.
That was the change in foam that we've had. So the foam that we've traditionally used for fires like this has the PFAS in it. So we went through a buyback program with the state, and so we no longer have that. So it's a different foam. And it doesn't attack a fire like that as well as what the AFFF that we used to have would be. So they got it figured out. It was close to my house, so I stopped by and watched for a while. They eventually got it figured out, but there's definitely a difference in the capabilities between the old foam and the new foam. So we learned a lot.
Chief, is there any issues with electric car fires? I mean, anything new happened as a result of all the electric cars out there?
We had our big electric car fire a couple of years ago in January. At the like 4 vans ended up burning up there. So it's a thing for sure. And we're prepping for it. We actually just received our EV blankets. So the concept is to put a special blanket over the vehicle that's burning, and then it can be transported and then burn out in a lot somewhere, whoever hauled it off. But we just learned that the EV blanket's about 80 pounds, and so we're trying to find a good location for it to go. Initially, it was going to be stored on the squad and the rescue. We're going to put it on the Chancellor vehicle right now. But yeah, we have 2 of those blankets that just showed up like 2 days ago.
Are there additional risks to the firefighters from the fumes?
Well, yeah, I mean, all of those car fires, even the electrical car fires, have the fumes that we don't want to be on. So that's why we have our PPE.
There are some serious complexities with it. The big issue with the batteries is thermal runaway, so it self-sustains, creates its own oxygen and just continues to burn. The blankets will literally control the fire, does not suppress the fire. We will literally have to remove the vehicle, put it in an off-site location, and allow it to basically burn out. Because water is not, you're not getting to the
In the
components of the
cell.
battery.
Yeah, if you can let it burn out, that's probably the most effective way.
Sucks.
Tim, got a question. Hey, Matt, got a question for you. Where did your seasonal people come from? Just out of curiosity, from the university or where?
We had one come from Federal Forest.
Okay.
One from the Ember Alliance, which is, they do fuels treatments across the United States, Malvern. And then 2 brand new folks.
Very cool. Thank you.
This one just capitalizing it again, the course that you guys saw earlier. We even did an interview with Channel 9 a couple weeks ago about the rescue, so.
Had full visibility though. This one had.
Yeah, it wasn't missing an eye, yeah. It's old, of course.
Chief, a heads up, Counselor Mallow and I attended the Sunday breakfast they had at the Golden Corral. It's kind of open to the community. There was discussion on finding a different location, Sunday mornings at 9, so you have people, it interferes with church. But their Golden Corral also charges you for breakfast, and that may, keep people. So they were talking about alternative locations, and I suggested they reach out to you, possibly Station 10.
Yes.
You have a conference room. Yeah, so you're gonna get a call. That's the heads up.
No problem. We don't have a flowing chocolate fountain. But,
Well, they can bring
maybe
their own
work on that.
coffee. That's what we talked about. You bring your own beverage, and each time, it's only once a month. It's
We'd
the
love to.
final
And what
Sunday.
group is it?
It's just it's open to all residents. It doesn't even have to be a resident. It's Sunday morning, the last Sunday of the month. And it's just a chance for council members to attend and listen to the public,
Oh, okay.
whatever they want to talk about.
Oh, nice.
So we'd love to do that. Mr. Chair, if I could, I shared this with the rural board. You do not have the full LFRA by the numbers. There is an operational component that is missing, and that is intentional. We just transitioned to a new reporting software. There's a complication with it that we will work through. It changes. There's an urban response area and a rural response area. So when we publish this, you're going to see the numbers are dramatically different, meaning there's going to be a lot more urban responses, like 97%, and only 3% rural. I don't want anybody to think that is directly city and urban or rural. We will do a follow-up report to basically bring that back to its original form. So just wanted to call attention to that. So there's not a smoke and mirrors process. What you see before you is just a new map. The highlighted area is the urban response area. The one there in your right hand is the old, the one in your left is the new. So just didn't want anybody to misunderstand the LFRA by the numbers or the fact that the operational report was not included. Thanks for that.
Okay, we've covered everything on the agenda. Do any board members have anything they would like to bring up? Further conversation? Thank you. Hearing none, we're adjourned.
Chairman, we started 5 minutes late, right? So this is 1 hour exactly.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Emily.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Hour and a half, chief, but that's just me.
Oh, you're